All right, welcome everyone. It's Raleigh, and I missed yesterday's news. Pardon me. So I was busy yesterday. Just so you guys know, I was recording yesterday and recording for the new series that I've been talking about, and it's just been a lot of work, which is totally fine. I'm actually really enjoying it. It's a good time, but I completely missed that we had news. It was funny because I finished whatever I was doing for the day, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get ready for work. And just as I was getting ready for work, I was like, wait a minute, it's Wednesday. Are we not getting news on Wednesday? And then on my way to work, I pull up Reddit, and lo and behold, there's an article, and I'm like, oh my god. And then I didn't want to read anything about it because I didn't want to spoil myself. I didn't want to spoil myself. So just so you guys know, I have not read any of this stuff. Okay, I know I read the titles, I know it's about rating and convergences, but that's it. That's all I know. I know nothing else about it. So we're gonna dive into this. Sorry, my voice is like a little raspy. I just woke up a little bit ago, and I was like, I gotta make a video. Um, I was like, I gotta keep up with these news, and I'm excited because um, so as some of you know, to give you a little bit of a premise of like why I'm excited. So to give you a premise, I'm not a raider. Okay, so I have raided with a couple people in the community as well as on Chicken Nooble's stream. So I have done some raiding. I'm just not a fan of the having to have a set rotation. Like there was even an instance where I was going into a raid telling people that I'm not a raider and I don't have like the perfect build or whatever. And then they ended up complaining because and they acknowledged it, and halfway through, I was like, well, why didn't you bring this skill? And I'm like, well, because I don't have a meta build and I don't like that skill. I like this skill and I want to use this skill because it works better for me, right? And it wasn't like they were mad or whatever, but I could see that there was like a little bit of a disconnect there because raiders, they're so used to like you have to have a set build and this is how it's gonna go and this is how it's gonna be. And I don't know. I'm just not the type. I'm such a chill player when I go in. I like to just hang out and have a good time. Um, the thing is that um, are these convergences as an idea was very interesting to me because they were almost presented like 50-man raids almost in a weird way, like this 50-man instance where you could fight with like people all around, and it didn't matter which build you had as long as you could carry yourself, which I can. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't. I usually fill like the DPS role because I've never really gotten into raiding, so I've never really gotten like specialized, like, oh, I provide this boon, do that or whatever, right? I just kind of do DPS. So, and I can carry myself. I mean, I do pretty good in the damage department. It's just that I don't take exactly all the little things, right? Like you guys know, I use a spellbreaker, but I don't use a hammer spellbreaker, right? And that was like one of the things that people are like, wait, you don't use a hammer? And I'm like, no, because I hate hammer. So I'm gonna use my dual daggers, which still do okay damage. You know what I mean? I might not have as much CC, but I'm still doing good damage. I don't know. There's like a whole thing about it, and I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but convergences were interesting to me because it was like, oh man, okay, we have a 50-man raid, and that gives you leeway as well, like versus like 10 versus 50, right? So it's just like in 10 you have to be organized and you have to have like a you know, set amount of like these skills and these boons that are provided and CC and blah blah blah, right? And all these things, all these utility things. On 50 man, and the way that I feel like convergences were supposed to be designed is like there's a little bit more of like freedom, right? As long as there's sufficient DPS within the 50 people, and all this stuff. The problem with the convergences for me was that they were very boring, right? Like when I look at raids, I look at like really interesting encounters, right? And I look at like, oh, there's cool mechanics, and visually it's also really nice because a lot of the raids look very different from each other. So it's super fun. Even the strike missions, like even if we look at strike missions, they're visually really interesting because you have all these different we even have three strike missions that take place in the same arena, but they're like designed differently, right? There's like different mechanics and different things happening. A problem with convergences, and I've only done since the release of Secrets of the Obscure, I've only done about 5 or 6 convergences. I did them early on. I think I did like 2 of them early on, and I went back and I did like another one, and then I did another couple. And I literally, I want to say in at least like 9 months, I haven't touched them because they're just really boring. They were just more of what I had been doing during Secrets of the Obscure. It was sitting there fighting cryptas coming out of like rifts. Like it was kind of like doing rifts like 50 times in a row, right? Like that's what it felt like because you were just fighting these bosses, right? And it's like I'm fighting like hordes of these minion cryptas, and then I fight a boss cryptas, and I do that 50 times until we get to the final boss, and then I defeat that guy. And those final bosses weren't even, to me, mechanically and visually weren't even that interesting, because when you have 50 people all hammering down on this one person that's maybe 3 times your size, that you can barely see them, right? There's barely anything happening. I really needed a little bit more in Convergences. I needed something a little bit more visually impressive. Like I was thinking, like if we have 50 people, I needed something like Nurus, the Eyes of the Abyss or whatever it's called, right? Like the boss from Omnitas. Like I needed something big, right? I needed something where I'm like, ooh, this is like impressive. This is like visually impressive. This is really cool. But we were just fighting like another like Ignaxius or another Wyvern, right? And it wasn't impressive. To me, Convergences were very, very boring, and it felt like a chore every time I did them. So I'm hoping, and that's kind of like why I'm starting with that. I'm hoping that there might be something like Convergences that are more interesting, that are more engaging, that are more dynamic, right? Like I'm looking for like a dynamic thing where like I go in and I want to go into, I feel like they could design it that way where I go into a convergence and I have a different experience every time, right? Like where maybe different enemies appear or different events, right? I kind of talked about this a little bit. I think I did this during my review of Secrets of the Obscure, or I might have done it, I don't know. There's been many times where we have talked about this like on stream or something, but the idea for me was that like I wanted different events to appear. It's like give me different events to do among the 50 people, right? And make it a little bit like, oh, where we have to split up because we have to do certain events, and like we have a really short time frame. So you have to split into 5 groups of 10 or something, and then in the end like kind of converge or something. I don't know, something like that. But where they do different events, where I could say, and I kind of compared it to doing um, Tarier, right? So Tarier is interesting because you have 4 different, doing just the meta event is like 4 different things, right? You have north, south, west, and east, right? And they all do different things. To me, that makes it interesting because let's say I'm going for the title that you get at defending Tarier 100 times. That means that I can do 25 of the same thing, right? Like if you're thinking about this, let's say we have to do for a title 100 convergences. You're doing 100 times the exact same thing. But with Tarier, I can do 25 times the same thing, and but I do 4 different things, and I do it 100 times. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm I'm just trying to find something where I'm like convergences should be a little bit more engaging, and maybe lead me into rating. I don't know. I don't know what they could do to really entice me to do rating. I know there's been a lot of discussion with, alacrity and quickness and like all, these boons. Like a lot of people have been saying get rid of them or make them like profession specific mechanics or whatever, right? There's been a lot of discussion. I don't know what it would take for me to go into rating. I honestly couldn't tell you, but as of right now, I'm not interested in it. But what I will say is I'm excited for the raiders because I have a lot of friends that are raiders. I have a lot of I know that a huge part of the community, a lot of the veterans, which I am a part of as well, are looking forward to new raids, right? They've been getting bored of doing the same raids over and over again. So I love the return of raiding. I'm hugely excited for it simply because I know that that's something that'll interest the veterans, that will keep them playing the game, and that will definitely, like, there's something to be said about the amounts of people that I've watched over the last 12 years leaving the game, which is just so sad to me because they couldn't find what they were looking for. So, and I think raiding is such a staple of MMOs that you need to have it in your MMOs, right? Because it's just something that's people inherently look for in MMOs. You know, it's that like end game content. It's just that end game instance. You know, organized like really like hard content. Like a lot of them. I'm not saying every single person, but I'm saying a big chunk of people looks for that. So, anyways, so enough talking about that. So it took like 10 minutes of me explaining, but that's kind of how my feelings are towards these things. So kind of consider that as I go through. Do I know anything about anything, like when it comes to mechanics or what makes it engaging? I know nothing. I'm just gonna give you guys my opinion, and you guys can do with that what you want, and that's totally fine. But I'm gonna give you my perspective. It might be a little bit of a unique perspective as well because of um, simply because I feel like I have a unique viewpoint as someone that has been a veteran for a long time, but that doesn't engage with endgame content like that. I might have a unique viewpoint, so you might get something out of that. I don't know. But anyways, let's get into it. So we have the article, The Return of Raiding and Convergences in Janthir Wilds. Hello Tyrians, we're less than a month away from the launch of Guild Wars 2 Janthir Wilds, and while there's plenty to be excited about for the August 20th release, players can also look forward to the newest raid on Convergence going live in our first major update in November. Okay, so newest raid and Convergence are going live in the major update in November. Okay, I don't know if this was something that was confirmed. I don't know, but I feel like that's the first that I've heard of this. So, which is totally fine. I'm totally okay with that. I think that's probably for the best because, and hear me out. So, this a lot of people might be like, well, I want convergences right with release, and I want rates right with release. But I think it's smart to do this because we're getting the spears, and giving people about 3 months to kind of get to get the builds updated, like on, platforms like Snowcrows and stuff like that, to really get down to what are the new meta builds and what are the, like, I know that spears are filling, specifically, again, I play a Spellbreaker warrior, right? So, it kind of fills a niche of, like, we don't have a long-range weapon that's power damage. That's decent, at least, rifle is just really bad. It gives people 3 months to kind of get used to the content, to the enemies that we can encounter, to the things that they do, to the mechanics kind of that they're using here, right? Like kind of, it's almost like a preview of what we can encounter in the convergences and the raids, or in the raid. I mean, it's just one raid. So I think this is actually a smart move, having people get used to it for 3 months and then say, okay, here's the hard content. Now you can test your really awesome builds that you've been working on for 3 months. That you really like figured out how to fight the enemies in this expansion, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's a good move. You'll be able to explore a mysterious mountain region, and as you ascend the mountain, you'll face off against opponents who won't go down without a fight. Players will also get to choose how to encounter these fights in either a 50-player Convergence or a 10-player Raid Wing, our first new Raid Wing in 5 years. Hey! So, yeah, so I think they kind of have explained this a little bit. I've been kind of confused on how they've worded these things, but they were like, they're reusing something from, wasn't it something where they're like, we're reusing something from the story to make the raid and then the convergence out of it or something? Like, you'll encounter it in open world. Didn't they say something like that? So it might be something that you've already seen. Again, it kind of gives us a chance to get used to, oh, this is what's going to be the raid or convergence or whatever, right? And then it's like, oh, I can't wait to have like this tuned up to 11 and we really go in it, right? Did they say anything about legendary challenge mode like being something for the raid? That would be really cool if they had that, right? The first raid wing with like a legendary challenge mode, which I know landed really well with a lot of people. I think that was something that a lot of the hardcore players really enjoyed. And I think there's something to be said. So the thing is, a lot of people might say, well, this doesn't really appeal to everyone, right? Like the raiding community isn't the biggest, right? And it's not the majority of the people that play, right? Like Guild Wars 2 is such a such a chill, like, there's no like pressure to get anything done, and there's no pressure to have to do end game so you can get the best gear or whatever, right? It's a very casual MMO. It's very doesn't pressure you into doing like certain things. You can kind of do like me, wander around the world and just kind of like, this is great. Like this is what I do, guys. I literally go through the core maps and I just hang out. I'm like, oh, look at this cool thing. Oh, look at this event over here. Like it's just like really dumb, okay? But I enjoy it, okay? And a lot of people probably look at me and they're like, really? This is what you enjoy? I'm like, yes. I play video games to not stress out, okay? This is like my one thing away from being stressed out all the time. So it's very casual, right? And I consume it very casually. But the thing is that while the rating community isn't the majority of the people, I think there's something to be said when they want to try to appeal to other people outside of the game, right? So Guild Wars 2 in its nature already appeals to the casual people that are out there playing video games like me, right? They look at it and they're like, oh, I don't have to do a gear treadmill and I can just like hang out and get rewards like for doing random things. Like anything in the world gets me like towards my next legendary. Sign me up, right? But there's also the people that look at Guild Wars and they're like, oh my god, it's so casual. Like, what am I supposed to do there? I want to do hardcore raiding, right? So there's something to be said about doing these big like legendary challenge mode things that are like this huge success, like where the streamers, where Mighty Teapot, with the Snow Crow's crew and Muckluck and all these people, right? They're all trying to do like, beat each other to like, oh, who's the first one to finish this and da 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 da, right? And it becomes like this unofficial streaming event where a lot of people are streaming and hundreds of thousands of people are watching across like God knows how many channels, right? There's something to be said because we can tell the story to other people and we can be like, oh, when this content came out, all of this stuff happened, and that might appeal to someone that's a hardcore player, right? Where they're like, I play hardcore whatever rating in WoW, for example, and it's like, oh, maybe that's something that I would be interested in. Like, I didn't know Guild Wars 2 had that, right? Like, I feel like there's some, like, this can be used as an ad almost, right? Like an advertisement to some of those people, as well as being engaging for the player base that already exists that wants this hardcore content. But it also, I think, helps to bring in a different crowd of like hardcore players, right? So, anyways, moving on. Our team is currently hard at work developing this new raid. So while we can't share all the details yet, as always, we can provide an overview of what to expect and explain why we're reintroducing raids, which I would be very interested to see what they say, along with some insight into what players can hope for in the future. I love this. This is really pretty. This looks like Out of Bounds. This doesn't look like a place you'd be walking around. This looks like a place you'd be walking around on. This doesn't look like a place you'd be but I love this. This is really cool. Like, I love this like big picture overview of this like weird tundra setting, going up the mountain. I can't wait to see how this, like, where this is in relation to anything. I mean, is this like, are we going to Kryta if we go that way? I love the skybox. Again, I kind of talked about how I wish ArenaNet would like change some of the skyboxes because quite honestly, like having these mountain ranges right across like that are kind of going a little bit up above the horizon, it's not visually like impressive. Like I tell people all the time in Guild Wars 2 to look up because so many people play like facing the camera down onto the ground. I get it, right? Because a lot of things are like ground targeted and there's rings appearing and there's red things and you gotta avoid here and gotta avoid there. But visually, they've done a lot of things. Like by looking up, you can see a lot of really cool things and it's very awe-inspiring. And I think changing some of the skyboxes, I really like this. To me, it looks really cool in this picture, but are we like, is this gonna be something that we see? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are we gonna look across and be like, oh my god, look at that mountain range in the back? Like, I feel like it needs to be more visually impressive. Like one that I really, really like is if you go to the and I forgot what it's called. It's the World versus World, the little lodge that you can go in. It's like the Mistlock place or whatever, Mistlock Sanctuary or whatever it's called, that they have for World vs. World. They have a really cool skybox for it where you can see like a mountain in the background, and I'm pretty sure at night it actually changes and the mountain disappears behind like these clouds. It's really interesting, and it's very like you don't notice it, right? But like I feel like it's super like obviously no one notices it because you're inside of that building the whole time, but I feel like if I had a map that was that way, where I can see like a huge mountain range in the background that's like massive, and at night it disappears behind a cloud, like behind like a wall of clouds or something. Like I feel like there would be something that's like really appealing and very like immersive. So, anyways, the return of raiding. In the past, raids were self-contained instances with their own stories, built for 10-player groups. Our goal with the upcoming raid is to allow players to experience the story in a way that works best for them. The raid will be integrated into the main storyline, and players who might be hesitant to join a raid group will be able to enjoy their own personal narrative. The 50-player version is built as a convergence, similar in structure to those found in Guild Wars 2: Seekers of the Obscure. Those participating in the 10-player raid will find the story to be more heroic, with a focus on the formidable enemies they face rather than the NPCs involved in the narrative. Huh. I don't hate this. I'm just very confused by it because I don't know what they mean. So the raid will be integrated into main story. Okay. Players who might be hesitant to join a raid group will be able to enjoy in their own narrative. So they're talking about doing a 50-player version as a convergence, but they make it sound right here. This last sentence they make it sound like the convergence is different to the 10-player raid. See, because it says participating in the 10-player raid will find the story to be more heroic, with a focus on the formidable enemies they face rather than the NPCs involved in the narrative. So, okay, so I can see a couple things. So, because I don't think that they would completely change how this instance works, because that's in a way that they make it sound. It sounds like you go into 50 people and you do kind of the same thing that we've done before, and you go into a 10 people and it's all of a sudden structured as a raid, which would then kind of feel completely different, right? So is it going to be like that, or is it going to be that like they could just be wording this really strangely? Because what if they mean they're both structured exactly the same and they kind of work the exact same way, but in 10-player raids you don't have NPCs that help you, maybe, like, rather than NPCs involved in the narrative. Like, it sounds like to me if there's a 50-player version, that there's going to be NPCs involved in the fight that can kind of help out or that do certain things or something, and you won't find that in the 10-player raid, and it's going to be up to the 10 players to fill those roles or something. It sounds very interesting to me. I don't know. Let's continue reading because I see something about differences. So let's continue reading and see what they say. While there will be some differences between the 50-player and 10-player version, the team has recognized the importance of maintaining a sense of continuity between both experiences. We look forward to watching players discover and master these mechanics in each setting. So there will be differences between 50. Yeah, so I'm thinking that's what it's gonna be. I think there's gonna be like the 50-player version is like you attacking with a bunch of the NPCs from the story, and you go in and you're bashing on the enemies, blah, 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 whatever. 10-player version probably has a lot more mechanics involved, right? And that's why they're thinking, I think that's why they're talking about master these mechanics in each setting. Where, like, maybe there's going to be, like, you know, how Zoja works in the Convergence, right? Like, in the Convergence that we have right now. Maybe that's what it's going to be in the 50-player raid, where there's like NPCs and we have to collect orbs in order to like revive people or whatever, right? To kind of carry that over, versus like 10-player versions that doesn't have that mechanic, but there's like other things that they have to do, right? Where it's not like collecting orbs or something, but you have to go do other things. I don't know. It sounds very interesting. With the introduction of our new raid encounters, some of you might be wondering if we will continue to create raids in the future. The short answer is maybe. Okay, well, at least they're honest. I mean, I can definitely, you know, the honesty there, I like it. I've been talking about how ArenaNet needs to be more transparent, and to me, this is a great transparency, because they're straight up saying maybe, we don't know. And that's, I love this because it's straight up like, I love a short answer. It's straight to the point where it's like maybe. Raids require a significant amount of development resources, but only a small subset of players engage with the 10-player group instance content, which is part of the reason it has been 5 years since our last one. This new raid serves as a test to see how we can support raids moving forward. I think this is great. This is perfect. This is exactly what I've been wanting out of ArenaNet. It's very it's this is what I've been talking about when we talk about transparency, and I love that I have a that I have a because I've been talking about like ArenaNet is not transparent and blah 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 all these things. But I think this is a prime example of the complete opposite side of the spectrum, where ArenaNet has been very like secretive about a lot of things for many years now, where it's just like, well, there might be something in store, or there's something gonna happen, or we can't share all the things with you, and da 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 da. And it's like, you're not being transparent. You're giving us, I talked about it during the one prime example was the the Coden and the region blog post they did a couple weeks ago, where they literally gave us like nothing. There was like nothing new in there, and I'm like, you made a whole blog post to give us like a couple of details that seem very like not significant at all, and a lot of the things we could like kind of infer from the things we've already seen and heard. So it's kind of like you're not really giving us a lot here. But this is perfect. I love this. This is right there. It shows, this is something where the raiders can go, well, maybe they're going to do more raids, but they have to figure out what is a good way. It costs them a lot of money to invest, and it's not many people engaged with the 10-player content. But I love the idea that they're taking convergences and raids and are kind of combining the two things by saying like, hey, you can do a 10-player raid, or we're going to take the exact same thing and we're making it a 10-man thing. I love that. I think that's a good middle ground. I think that's a good way to even build on the things you already have, and like just I don't know, make the content more engaging. Like I love the idea of having a convergence and a raid that are both like kind of the same thing. Um, and you can just like take different people. I like a lot of people have been talking about, oh, make the fractals, like I've seen it, not a lot of people have been talking about it, but I've seen a couple of times where people suggest, oh, make fractal 10-man, right? And I've kind of talked about this as well because I love the way the fractals work and the system that they have implemented for it. So this is great. I really, really, I gotta commend ArenaNet for coming forward and being straight up and saying, this costs us a lot of money. This is a lot, like a huge amount of development, time, money, and resources, but not many people engage with it, so we don't know if we're gonna do other raids. But because now that they're being honest, like, and this is kind of where I'm coming from when I talk about the transparency. Now that they're sitting there and they're being honest with us, transparent with us, not necessarily honest, but transparent with us. They're telling us straight up, this is what's going on. They can have the community maybe engage more with that information and say, hey, here's some ideas, right? Like, lean maybe a little bit on your player base a little to come up with some solutions for you as well. Like, listen to the feedback of the player base, right? I feel like now that people know this, they're more inclined to give feedback because it sounds like ArenaNet is going to listen to the feedback. I think a lot of people have been very like wary about leaving any type of review or like feedback or whatever because they think, well, ArenaNet is not listening anyway, so why would I waste my time sitting here and they're just going to do whatever they want? I've been asking for rates for 5 years and they haven't done anything with it, right? And then now they're bringing it back. Like, it kind of feels like, well, we've been asking for so long and now you're bringing it back. Um, but I think this is perfect, right? So the thing is, give them feedback on it, right? Specifically the raiders, like, is this what you want, right? Like, it sounds like they're looking to find other avenues of still supporting the raiding community. And I think that I don't know, I think there is a way that the players can now engage, I feel like, on a different platform with ArenaNet, based off of this, right? Where they can really say, like, well, you gave us this, right? You gave us this honest answer of what the future holds for rating, and maybe we can sway your mind one way or another, right? It could also be that a lot of the feedback is kind of like, if raids are going to be turning into this, we would really like rather just not have raids and just have you focus on convergences. Well, okay, sorry. Windows wants to have me do something. No, thank you. Um, but do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's kind of this thing um, where I just really think there's this opens like a channel to communicate between the two, the rating and the arena. I think, at least. Sorry, guys. Originally, we attempted to solve the cost problem with raids through strike missions, a new game mode designed to be a bridge between players and raids. A bridge between players and raids. It was supposed to be a bridge between like fractals and raids, not. I mean, I guess it was supposed to. I don't know. The way they word that is really strange because I don't know. And I love this as well, right? Like this kind of says they don't outright say it. We attempted to solve the cost problem. Like it kind of tells them that this didn't work. There is this like subcontext, like reading between the lines. It sounds like they tried to do strike missions and they were like, this really didn't do what we wanted it to do, which is fine. I mean, that's totally okay. Like, you're not always gonna, like, I need ArenaNet to understand that you're not always gonna succeed at things, and saying like, hey, we failed at this is okay. ArenaNet is one of those companies, they don't like to admit when they have failed at something. Like, they've never, like, they always twist it in a way where they're like, oh, we've learned from this experience. It's like, you mean you completely failed at it, and now you're kind of like picking up the pieces and seeing what we can make with this like shattered content that you have? You know what I mean? Like, this is like a different way of like wording things, which is totally fine. They can do. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to run a company, and I don't know how to do any of that stuff. But it's just always funny to me because I talk about honesty, and I'm a very honest person myself. And I'm honest to a fault. I've lost jobs over the honesty that I've had, and I've lost friendships over the things that I've said, just simply because, sometimes I'm like brutally honest. Even with myself, I sometimes have to be brutally honest, where it's like, Raleigh, you're not cool, okay? And it's like, anyways. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. It's funny that they word it that way, bridge between players and raids. Do you guys think, and let me put this out to you guys that are raiders, do you think that strikes did in some way help with the rating? Did this kind of was this kind of used in a way? Did you use it to introduce new people to raiding? Is this something that you guys think worked? I would love to hear from the people that do raids. Like, do you think that it was a good way of like, hey, this is a new player and we're kind of gonna just take them on strikes, or we're gonna do fractals with them and then we're gonna take them on strikes and then we're gonna take them into rating? Like, do you think there was somewhat of a bridge? I'd love to hear that. This time, instead of trying to give players bridge content in the hope that it leads them to raids, we're just giving them the raid content from the start. In the form, those interested in it really want. Wait, what? Am I dumb? Is this sentence kind of weird? We're just giving them the raid content from the start in the form those interested in it really want. It's worded really strange. So they're saying for those interested in it really want. I think the sentence is kind of, either it's structured really strange or I don't understand what they're trying to say. But I guess they're trying to say like we're giving it in a different, we're giving raid content in a different form, but this is not really what people want, right? Like, it's kind of weird. Players who want a 10-player instanced mechanics heavy version can play that, and players who prefer a large scale open world experience with few barriers to entry can also experience the content that way. Purity of purpose. This might also lead to people just being like, wow, I want all of the raids to be like this because I don't want to do raids and I just want to do 50-man convergences, right? So this might steer people away from doing raids more than have them engage in it. It might be that some people are like, oh, it's I think what it comes down to is like rewards and um like really what the differences are. What is the difference between the 10-player raid and the 50-man convergence, and what are the rewards? Can I get better rewards through the raid? Because here's the thing. Because if they can make it, if they can make it really where the 10-player instance has way better rewards and way more like um just cooler stuff, right? We like fashion is like end game, and there's like really cool skins you can get and really cool stuff, whatever, right? Like, if I can get everything that I can get in a 10-player instance with doing the convergence, there's no bridge. Again, they don't want to make a bridge, but there's no, you know, there's too much freedom, because then it's like, well, what's the point of doing the 10-player raid? Because you already said yourself that only a small subset of people are doing raids. So what's really the point then, right? Like, if you're so worried about the money and development and like all these things that you're investing in at the time, all that stuff, right? Then maybe there is no place for it. Like, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the reason was to bring raids back, because they said, didn't they say bring like didn't they say where they're like, we wanted to give you a reason as to why we brought them back? um can Cheryl, that we could provide an overview of what to expect and explain why we're reintroducing raids. So maybe I haven't found that yet. Let's finish reading this. Um, Meanwhile, integrating raid content into the story lets us fit its development into our annual release schedule. We aim to extend story assets to support raids and gauge players. Gauge players' reactions to raids that have been integrated into the story. Sometime after raid release in November, its challenge mode will become available. Additional players participating in it can participate a legend. Whoever wrote this was either very tired, or who wrote this? Guild Wars team. Doesn't say. Just says Guild Wars team, because that sends. Additionally, players participating in the 10-player raid can anticipate a legendary mode, offering a highly. Oh, can anticipate. Okay, I just don't know how to read. There you go. So that's what it is. I'm the idiot. Offering a highly coveted purple title. So it is there. There's a legendary mode. I love it. That's great. That's a great idea, right? Challenge mode, legendary mode. I love it. I love that that's an introduction. I love that there is an even higher bracket of challenge for the people. I think they should go back and reintroduce legendary mode to a lot of other raids. I don't know how hard that would be to make. I mean, you already have the raids done. Introducing a new a harder challenge mode, or anything like that. Like, I don't even know, do most raids have challenge modes? I don't even know if they do. Introduce challenge modes and introduce legendary modes to all of them. And give more rewards and give more things. I don't know. Yeah, apparently I can't read. So, but yeah, I'm still missing the as to why. I maybe I'm not really reading it. So the like, I have to read between the lines to understand like why. The why is they want to introduce people to harder, like, I don't know, because convergences were already there, so it's like, I don't know. I don't see the why, right? They talk about like why we're reintroducing raids, but I don't really see. There are some differences here. The importance of maintaining a sense of continuity. No, look at the master these. With the introduction of new, some of you might be wondering if it will continue raids. Maybe raids significant amount of. The new raid is the test to see how we can support raids in the future. That's not a why, right? That's not. You're not doing a new raid to see if you want to do, like, that's kind of weird. Originally we attempted to solve. Instead of trying to give place. I'm still failing to see the why. Why did you bring raids back? What is the overall, again, a little bit of transparency would have been nice here, as to the why, right? We've gotten a lot of transparency, and I've commended them for it, but I would have loved to have seen kind of like exactly why did you bring raids back? Was it because you really felt like you needed this end game challenge? Like, for end game players, did you need this challenge? Because you, like, during Secrets of the Obscure, they kind of said like, oh, we have convergences that's gonna kind of fill fill that slot, right? But there seems to be something where they're like, convergences maybe weren't that what we like. Just a sentence in here where they said pretty much what I just started, like convergences were supposed to kind of maybe fill that role, but we found that it didn't really fill the role, and we figured that maybe raids could fill the role of like this endgame challenge. Like, while they talk about only a small subset of players engage in the 10-player group instance, how many people engage in the convergence end game content? Because I can tell you right now that I don't do convergences, and I know a lot of other people don't engage in convergences either, right? So there's a little bit of like I'm missing the why. Well, like I said, I'm excited for raids to come back, and I wish they could continue doing it. And if this is how they need to, if this is how they're gonna do it, where they have to like they make a convergence, which is like an open world thing for 50 people, not open world, but like an instance, public instance, right? Like Dragonstorm or whatever, right? Like convergence like that. Versus like and then doing a 10-player raid out of that, like I would totally be okay. And that's the thing, like we go back, and the original convergence is Dragonstorm, right? It's like Dragonstorm and things like the marionette and stuff, like those fights are the original convergence. It might not have the convergence tag on it, right? But that's pretty much what it is, because they're on a timer, and they're these world bosses that are public, right? That you can go, or these instances that are on a timer where you can go in with a bunch of people from public, from the public, like, whatever, coming in and all playing together, and you don't have to be organized or whatever. And so we've had convergences in the game for a while now. I mean, they have been in the game for a while now, but I think that if I compare them to all the other convergences, I can only think of like two right now, because the marionette, is there another one? Do you guys, like, you can leave in the comments, like, because there's the Dragonstorm and there's the marionette, right? Like, those are like these, they're on a timer, you can go in, a bunch of people, it's like a pub. I mean, I know specifically Dragonstorm feels so much like a convergence, but it's much more engaging because there's all these different things, right? It's like you have to break up the fight between the two of them, and then you have to defeat each of the champions, and each of those have their own mechanics, and then you have to go destroy, you have to kind of swap off of them, and you have to go destroy the little ley line thingies that they have, and then you have to like jump up and like shoot at each of the dragons, and it has a lot of like moving parts and different things. And like I said, I can do 50 times going to the Primordial side and 50 times going to the Jormax side, and it feels kind of different. There's like a lot of different things happening, and together I've done 100 times versus doing the actual convergence from Secrets of the Obscure, where it's just like the same thing 50 times, like 100 times in a row or whatever, right? Where like I do it 100 times and it's literally the same thing over and over again, so it'll be interesting to see exactly what's in there. It's going to be very interesting to see exactly what the content is. They're not giving us details, which I think is fine in this sense. I just think the whole explaining like why they're going back to convergences or raiding, and why they're combining it with convergences, is a good step. Again, this is great communication. There's a lot of insight. There's a lot of transparency. This is something that I really, really like, because it feels, I feel like the connection between ArenaNet and the player base has kind of been broken over the last few years, where it's kind of ArenaNet has been kept them so quiet, and it's been like any of the transparency they've given us has kind of felt like almost like a false narrative, where it's just like you're telling us one thing, but then there's other things happening in the background. I talked about this recently. Like, one example of this is our focus on Guild Wars 2, right? They've been talking about our focus is Guild Wars 2. We are 100% focused on Guild Wars 2, but we do know for a fact that they're hiring for like other projects in the background. So it's like, well, your focus is Guild Wars 2, but is it really though? You have other projects in the back which happening or you're working on in the background, and you might say, well, they are focused on Guild Wars 2 because they're not really doing but I'm like, well, from a company money standpoint, like, those new projects are probably very important, because that's a lot of investment, and we've seen them cancel projects, a lot of them. Like, as far as we know, there was like 3 big projects canceled during Ice Boot Saga that never made them any money, right? So, and that was development time and cost, and it also took away from Guild Wars 2. Right, like those people that worked on those games, that worked on the art and worked on the music and worked on all the things that have now been shredded, right? They could have worked on Ice Speed Saga and made it the best release ever, and it ended up, and unfortunately that clearly didn't happen, and we all know that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but I just think that the communication has been a little iffy, right? Where they kind of say one thing, but there's like another, and that's kind of where I touched on earlier when I said like honesty. I want Arena to kind of be honest, and it's like, yeah, okay, at least say like our main focus is Guild Wars 2, but we do have other projects in the background. That's all you can. I mean, I don't know if they're allowed to say that. There might also be like a red tape thing. Like, is NCSoft like telling them they can't say anything because they haven't gotten anything concrete yet or whatever? I don't know. So there's like a little bit of that. But I love this. I think this is a step in the right direction. This is exactly kind of where I'm talking about. Like they're being very honest, specifically in this paragraph right here, where they're like, we don't know if we're doing raids, and that's okay. Saying that is great. It's better than like, because imagine they didn't say this, right? Imagine they left this part out, okay? Imagine that didn't exist. So people in their minds would be thinking, oh my god, the next expansion next year is gonna have a raid. It's gonna have a raid. But it's like, now that you're adding this in, a lot of people are like, ooh, we might not get a raid. That might even entice people to want to play more raids and give more feedback on it and say, no, we want raids, right? Like, do you see what I'm saying? I feel like this opens this line of communication between the two things, that is ArenaNet and the player base. I just love this. I love it a lot. We get a little bit more of the little view. This is probably, this is further down this looks like a different skybox, like different part of the skybox, so this might be further down. This isn't super detailed in the things, but I think that's okay, because we're talking about a convergence, and people aren't going to be like, oh, look at all the pretty things. So it still looks really nice. I love how there's like a divide. There's like an arid mountain, and then you have like a tundra-like little like hill, landscape or whatever. With this purpley thing, it'll be interesting. Is this, I don't know, there's just like purple lightning. This is very like Krakatoa-y, right? With the jagged rocks and the purple and whatever. It'll be interesting to see, because I don't see any of I was kind of looking for that. I talked about how like the trees have that like weird like yellow purple going up in them, and that's kind of the core of these elementals, the new elementals that we've seen, whether they're titans or not. But that's kind of like, it seems to be a big part of the story. Like, is this part of this as well? Like, what's going on here, right? Clearly that's like a boss arena, so you come down here and then you like fight a boss in there or something, I'm guessing. But it'll be interesting to see what is going on. What is going on? Convergences in Janthir Wilds. The Code and Cubs huddle closely around the... Oh, this is like story time. The Code and Cubs huddle closely around the village's claw, their eyes wide with awe and excitement as he begins to recount a harrowing tale. It's a story of bravery and strategy in which a band of 50 fearless Tyrians embarked on a daring mission as they ascended the mountain. As the tale unfolds and you take up the challenge in this encounter, you will find a strong ally in your Warclaw mount, which will aid in this new adventure. Cool. This is kind of cool. So they're doubling down on using the Warclaw, which is fantastic. I like the moving away from the Sky Scale. I've talked about how I think Sky Scale ruined a lot of the core game and ruined a lot of like exploration and the details. And I've done this in I think the last blog post where I had that 5-minute rant about that. But anyway, so I love that the Warclaw is going to get involved in this convergence. It sounds like something that this is already enticing to me, okay? Using the Sky Scale in a convergence is boring to me. Using the Warclaw is more exciting to me because I'm closer to the action, and I might get I might get thrown off, dismounted like by enemy attacks or whatever. So this sounds a lot more engaging to me using the war claw in the convergence. Okay. Listen closely as the village's claw weaves the narrative. Each encounter promises unexpected challenges and thrilling surprises. During your encounters with these enemies, you might observe a noticeable shift in difficulty compared to what you experienced in Guild Wars 2 Secrets of the Obscure. We've fine-tuned these bosses to present a more advanced challenge than in previous convergences, necessitating coordinated efforts from all party members to secure victory. Lovely. More engaged bosses. I talked about this just now. Okay, more engaging bosses, more engaging whatever. This is great. I love this. This convergence. I don't know why they're saying convergences. It's like one convergence, unless they're having like all these different bosses that are going to be in there. It's like it's one convergence. I hated when they said convergences for Secrets of the Obscure. I'm like, it's one convergence. It's literally one. Like, it's it's like one arena where one convergence happens. I mean, I don't know, it's kind of weird to me that the word convergence. Maybe I don't understand the word convergence, but it might just be me again. I don't know. Listen, I'm not the brightest bulb on the chandelier, okay? Anyways, so this is good. Having noticeable shift in difficulty, I do like that a lot. I love that it's a noticeable shift in difficulty. I like that a lot. I want the stakes to be raised. I don't want it to be a walk in the park. I've seen a lot of people talk about how convergences have failed. The 6 that I've done, the 6 or whatever I've done, I don't know how many, it's a random number. It's probably close to 6, somewhere around that. I've never failed, not once. Is that true? You know what? We did fail once. Actually, because I'm like, now that I say that, I'm like, no, there was one convergence that we failed. But I feel like it's not super hard to fail it, because I think the only reason we failed was because there was a lot of people, like, that didn't know what was going on. It was, like, in the off time. Like, this wasn't, like, prime time. This was, like, in the middle of the night or something, and a lot of people, I don't know, if people were, like, intoxicated or whatever, but it didn't work out, and I was just like, whatever, I might be confusing this as well with like a meta event or something, but I would love to see it fail more often. The thing, okay, so I think I need to give a little bit more of an explanation. So I don't want people just like to invest 30 minutes of their time into convergence only for it to like, you have 2 seconds left, and the boss is at like 5%, and then you get him down to like 3%, and the time is done, right? And you fail because you failed at 3%, and 50 people have now invested 30 minutes in getting absolutely nothing. I want them to have like, take a book out of strike missions, for example. Strike missions have a time limit, and the faster you finish, the better the rewards are. So what I would like to see is not necessarily failure, but failure to complete it to get the gold reward. Do you see what I'm saying? So I still want people to get rewards for investing the time, but I want this to be like minimal rewards. You get like the bronze reward, and it's kind of crappy. And then people are like, oh my god, really? This is all I'm getting? And it's like, oh yeah, in gold, you can get like the coolest stuff ever, right? Give them something for investing the 30 minutes, but make it like, hey, you want to be good at this, right? You want to be able to really have a good build, drive the people to be like, you can open this other chest if you had done a good job. Give them a little bit of incentive, but also don't punish them too hard. Because I think one of the things that kind of turn people away from convergences is because you got to remember, you go into 49 random strangers. They could all be people that do like 2k damage, and you're one doing 45k damage, right? And you're just like, oh my god. And you have like, I don't use a DPS meter, but a lot of people use arc DPS, right? You have arc DPS up, and you can see that you're like, your bar is like way up there, right? And you're just like, oh my god, I'm doing so good, right? And all these other people are like, it cuts off like right on you. It's like a pew pew, right? And they're all like doing like 2k damage, and you're just like, oh my god, we're failing because none of these other places. And it's not necessarily like a toxic thing where you're like, oh my god, all these people suck, but you have the data right in front of you. You're like, oh my god, all these people, and I was like, I got stuck with them, and now I'm gonna waste my 30 minutes of time like doing all of this, and we're not even gonna win this. And that person might even decide to just leave because they're just like, well, I'm not getting anything out of it. So still, maybe give them something. I like the idea of having it like be tiered on based off of how fast you complete them. I think that's one thing that strike missions did really well, and I think that kind of taught a lot of people to do better and better and better. Because I remember seeing people, like specifically when the first strike mission came out, the pass, the Shiver Peaks pass or whatever it's called, where in the beginning I would see like constantly we would only get bronze, 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 and then as people got better with like figuring out how to do this, and some of the raiders came in and kind of like they were like, oh, we have really good builds or whatever, like seeing more of the silver and then gold. And I like now, because of power creep, like you always get gold because it's a pretty easy strike mission. But I kind of want to see that. Like I feel like for rewards, and uh maybe we'll get a little bit here, right? So but yeah, so anyways, completing Convergences in Guild Wars 2 Janthir Wilds will award players with essences that can be used to craft legendary gear. And yes, these essences will be compatible with the legendary obsidian armor available in Guild Wars 2 Secrets of the Obscure, as well as the new legendary spear and legendary backpack arriving in the quarterly updates for Janthir Wilds. Essences from Convergences will be renamed Rift Essences with 3 rarities to streamline the rewards. So this is really good. So I've been wanting to get the PvE armor set from Secrets of the Obscure, but like I said, rifting is super boring to me. Convergence is super boring to me. So I've kind of not done any of it. I've worked towards some of it, but I haven't done the big like really getting into it, like doing all of these things that I need to do and doing convergences over and over again. So if we have more engaging convergences, and I don't like the new legendary spear, for example, because God knows I don't have to like it, but it's like maybe it's not a spear that I want to create. I already have a legendary spear, so maybe I don't want it. And maybe that I have a legendary backpack, maybe I don't want the legendary backpack. So still rewarding me for something that I don't have, which is working on the legendary armor. I really, really love this, because if this convergence coming with Janthia Wilds is as engaging as I hope it is, and as fun as I hope it's gonna be, then I might be able to work towards my legendary armor finally. I've been working toward. I'm working towards the legendary armor in World vs. World, but I haven't really been doing a lot of World vs. World, and it's a heavy armor. But I would like to see like a light armor, and I do like some of the pieces actually of the heavy armor from the PvE armor set, specifically the helm from the heavy armor looks really, really cool. So I kind of want that. I might work towards that. I don't know. Just getting one piece of the heavy armor set, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe if convergences are just like really fun and it's something where I'm like, heck yeah, I want to keep doing those. Like maybe I'll work on like getting all of these armor sets. Who knows? It would be really cool. But anyways, so there's that. We hope you enjoyed hearing about some of the post-launch content coming in Guild Wars 2 Janthir Wilds. They haven't given us much about what else will be coming after. We've heard a lot of like the thing with Secrets of the Obscure is we heard really early on exactly what the release cadence, like the release cadence, but also what was within each of the releases. We kind of knew that the new weapons would be coming with the second release, and we knew that like whatever was coming with like what convergence came with the first one or something, or whatever it was, right? Like there was like different things, like we got like the strike missions, and we got like they had laid this all out. They haven't really laid out what's coming with what, beside now raids and convergences. So unless I missed that somewhere, but that's okay. And then they're giving us pre-purchase or whatever, and we get to see a little baby Coden. These screenshots are so low quality. Is it just me, or are they like really low quality? But it's a little baby Coden, and he's like, and this guy looks. They've shown a lot of different models of these new Coden, the lowland Coden. They look really cool. We've seen so many different ones now, but it's probably the quality is probably because they can only put like small pictures in here or something, and when we pull it up, it's like, I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're gonna get to play it. Oh, guys, we're so close. We're so close to the release. Are you guys excited? I'm excited. I'm excited to just see a new part of the world. I'm excited to just talk to a new race, or a new subspecies of a race or whatever. I don't know. I'm just excited to go in. I'm kind of excited for Convergences because it sounds like it's going to be more engaging, and I would like to really like Convergences. I really want to like Convergences. Okay, and yeah, just so you guys know, I'm still planning. So the plan is for Janthir Wilds. If you guys are interested in joining me in playing this, the idea is that I would like to do. I will be streaming that Tuesday, the release of that, which is that Tuesday, uh, the 20th, right? So the 20th, and then that. So and I've always done it this way. I've always given myself 1 day for each map. So since we're getting 2 maps, I have 2 days. So I took off of work for the 21st. So the 20th. We will be doing the Lowland Shore. We'll be doing the story in the Lowland Shore. We'll probably do the story then so Lowland Shore. I don't know where the hub fits in. I don't know if the hub is like in between the 2 maps, like the Wizard's Tower, or if it's sitting in like one of the maps, or if it's like in the beginning, right? Like early on. Like, is the hub going to be like early on when you get to the Lowland Shore? I don't know, right? We don't know, but the idea is that I do the Lowland Shore, the story in the Lowland Shore, and then after that, before we go on to the next map or the next area or whatever, we do map completion. So I go around. I want to do all the maps. I want to do like different events. There's the cool thing is that we've already heard there's no meta event, so I don't have the pressure of like, oh, I also want to do the meta event, but then I'm like doing map completion or story, and the meta event is happening, and all these things are happening at once. So we can kind of take our time on the first day. Second day, um, if we have to do the hub, I don't know if I'm gonna do it, depending on how long each, like, if the first day takes like way long to do map completion and do all these other things, and the hub is, in the second map or something, we'll keep the hub for the next day. But then that Wednesday, I want to do the second map, Janthir Sentry, do the story to completion, then do map completion, and as well as like the meta event that's on there, do the hub, and maybe even if we can fit it in, depending again how long all of this takes, how long I want to stream, do a convergence maybe and see, or convergences aren't coming out. What am I saying? Convergences, I literally just read that is coming out with the first major update. So never mind. But yeah, so, and then we can kind of discuss at the end of that how I feel and how I enjoyed most of it. Yeah, and that's going to be the 2 days. So if you guys want to join me, I will be over here on YouTube. I will be streaming this. And you guys can join me. And obviously those streams are going to be up on the channel as well. So if you guys want to join me on that, I'll probably start making a new, I'm gonna have to go through the channel a little bit and kind of sort a little bit into playlists, because I always like having like playlists for certain things where I can say, oh, you want to hear everything about Janthia Wilds, right? Like, kind of go to that playlist. So I might do all of these, and no promises on when this is gonna happen, but all these news things, I might do a playlist of that, and then when we go into Janthir Wilds, I'll just probably make a playlist that's like Guild Wars 2 Janthir Wilds release or something, and then that's going to be everything that's like that, those streams, and every stream that has to do with that, because the post the major updates post the initial release, I'm going to be streaming those as well, and I'm going to be doing convergences. I don't know if I'm going to be doing the raids, but anything else that's coming out will probably be in that. I'm going to have to kind of go through. I know that I've kind of been lacking on updating those playlists, so. But anyways, thank you guys so much. And like I said, kind of look out for, there probably will be a giveaway for Janthia Wilds leading up to the release of Janthia Wilds. So there will be like a expansion code giveaway that I'm going to be doing on the community tab on my channel. So kind of keep an eye out on that. If you guys are interested, or if you want to get your friend the expansion or whatever, if you know someone that's like, if you end up winning or whatever, and if you want to tell your friend like, hey, maybe try to enter that if you want to play the thing or whatever. So but yeah, keep an eye out for that. I don't know when that's gonna happen. I'm trying to get the regional lore videos done, so I'm hard at work doing those. But I've also been busy with a lot of other things in my private life. So it's just like been crazy. I've gotten, just so you guys know, to give you a little bit of an insight, I've gotten to drinking coffee. And I've never had coffee in my life, and I hate coffee. But I'm like, I need something to get myself up, and I can't do energy drinks because they just mess with my heart too much, and it's just, I literally think I have a heart attack every time I drink those. So I've gotten to drinking coffee, and I'm like, I don't drink coffee. And it's like, but I need to stay awake. I need to work on all these things. So coffee is not a bad thing, right? All the stuff that I'm putting in my coffee is bad. So there's that. But anyways, thank you guys so much. It's been over an hour, and over an hour. If you're still here, I appreciate you guys so much, and I hope you guys will join me in all of these things, and let me know what you guys think. And yeah, and I don't know. I guess I hope you guys have a good day. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.